This is a short video about developing patterns in Photoshop. Patterns are made up of elements called motifs. So in this file, I have two different motifs. Just moving them so you can see 1 and 2. I'm going to rename the layers so that they are motif 1 and motif 2. And I'm going to create a grouping of motifs by duplicating and maybe rotating the elements here into what will become a new motif by merging them together. So a motif can be an individual element, or it can be a group of elements that create a motif unit. So I'm going to merge these layers together, and this is going to be the motif that I work with. Now, a lot of these ideas work regardless of how many elements are grouped together, but this motif unit is going to be lined up along the edge and then duplicated and placed directly beneath and then directly next to itself so that you can see the pink lines are smart guides, and that's very helpful. So you can see what would happen if this group of motifs repeated in a pattern. So the grouping dictates the movement of the larger pattern. I'm going to go back and show you what happens with a different type of grouping. So let's say this grouping is going to be more fans and the same amount of flowers. So this is going to be a different grouping. I'm going to merge them together. Again, I'm going to put them up in the upper left-hand corner, and I can always increase the canvas size if I need more room. In this case, I'm going to make it a little bit taller so that I can see my pattern move. So I have this butted up against the edge here, and then I'm going to duplicate it. I'm holding the Option key down and the Move tool, clicking and dragging, and you can see what this pattern would look like by using this grouping of motifs. And I am using the smart guides here to line everything up. It makes it a lot easier. So in this pattern, we don't have the large gap, but we do have a line of flowers, and I'm going to undo this one more time and do another grouping. So in this grouping, I'm going to add 2 more flowers to the grouping, here and here. Again, merging everything together. I'm going to move these up to the edge here. Change the canvas size so there's more white. And then duplicate it and line it up so I can begin to see what the pattern would look like. And you'll notice now that I have more flowers that it offsets the pattern differently than when I had less flowers. And I can also make adjustments in terms of spacing so that it looks more of a balanced rhythm. So this is the pattern that I'm going to move forward with. And you'll notice that I tried something, stepped it out, went back, fixed it, stepped it out, etc. But you can also just create multiple files so that you keep each version of it, or do it in groups of layers. So I'm going to merge these 4 motif groupings together, and you'll notice that there's extra white space around the outside. So the next step for me is going to be creating a block print idea by selecting, I'm going to actually fill them with pink so you can see. I'm going to select half the motifs from the center. So basically, I'm going to create a pink version here so that you can see exactly what I'm about to do. Half the motifs means I'm not going to select this one and this one because this is the same as that one. I'm going to select and fill with pink just the center unit here. And this is going to become our block print. So you'll notice I did every other one here, and I'm going to put it on its own layer, make the other layer invisible just so you can see how this locks together. And you can see that if I cut this into a block, then when I print it, it'll print like this. So that process of stepping it out and testing it really tells me what I'm going to end up with. And this can be done with an individual motif, or it can be done with a grouping of motifs. If it's done with an individual motif, you might want to take a few of them and step them out so that you don't have to print one at a time. So I'll do that here, just with one motif, and show you what I mean. So even if this is the same thing being printed over and over again in a pattern, I probably wouldn't want to spend all of my time printing it in a perfect half drop. This is called a half step, rather. I would want to create a cluster of them so I can print multiples at a time. That means more cutting with the block, but it means that you don't have to print as many times. So oftentimes it's worth it. And by hand cutting them into the block, you're also going to get a little bit of variation just because, you know, we're not computers and you will cut with slight variation. So this is a good representation of what a block might look like. Nothing's cut off and everything will lock together when it prints. So again, I can test that out and say, you know what, spacing looks good, I like it. And then I can go ahead and, well, in this case, I don't really need to select the middle ones, but you can see how selecting the middle ones when it's varied motifs makes sense. So that would be my block that I cut.